Welcome to the Agility in Real Life podcast, Take 5 in Real Life. Now your hosts, Mike Studeman and Jeff Lee.
Welcome back to the Take 5 IRL podcast from Agility IRL. I'm Jeff Lee, one of your hosts and a partner at Agility IRL.
And I'm Mike Studeman, another partner at Agility IRL and your co-host for this episode. Hope you're having a great day, Jeff.
I am absolutely having a great day, Mike.
So this is the first time you and I have been together in a while on an episode. Shout out to Pat Campbell, our third partner at Agility IRL, who's unable to join us today. Just for my own benefit, Jeff, can I kind of reset where we're at in our conversation here as we're talking about a variety of Agile-related topics?
I think that'd be good for both the listeners and as well as us, since the two of us have not been together for a while. So let's baseline it.
Yeah, so as I understand it, and as you know, I'm a big viewer of my own podcast, but as I understand it, we've been talking about failure modes and agile transformations. Pat and I had kind of set up some of our favorite failure modes, if you will. You and Pat had then talked about a couple of things. One, really focusing on the business outcomes that you're trying to get from any sort of transformation effort. And then in our last episode, you had talked about kind of narrowing in on stakeholders and mapping out those stakeholders, acknowledging that not all stakeholders are equal, or to quote Orwell, some stakeholders are more equal than others.
Exactly.
Is that kind of where we're at in the conversation?
Yeah, that's where we left off.
So not to be blunt, but my question is, okay, so we've talked about our outcomes, we've talked about our stakeholders. Now what? Now what are we supposed to do?
Wait, we have to do things?
We do have to, at some point, you have to do something. Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
it's disappointing. All right. Well, yeah. So we've set this up. We've let our stakeholder, we have aligned on business outcomes. Our stakeholders know that they're important to us, and we've put them on a virtual piece of paper somewhere, right? So getting them engaged is the next thing, right? You've told them they're important. Well, now you got to show them. So invite them into the right conversations. Get them into those conversations where we're doing product discovery, maybe product backlog refinement if we're getting closer to the getting things ready to develop. So get them involved, get them actively engaged.
So how do we, and I'm a big not confusing activity with progress guy.
Right.
How do we know that we're making progress and actually achieving those outcomes? Are there specific steps that you would recommend a client take to ensure that we're actually increasing our agility? Maybe give our listeners an example.
Yeah, well, first and most obvious one to me is the sprint review, right? This is not just the demo. This is an opportunity for our stakeholders, many different levels of stakeholders, however equal they are, to come in and learn what we're doing, not only what we've produced in that sprint, but where we're going next. Part of that, some foundational concepts we've talked about before, having a product goal that aligns with your product vision, that's aligned to some measurements that are showing business outcomes, having a sprint goal that's aligned to that product goal. So we're getting that whole alignment to value and demonstrating progress every single sprint.
Yeah, great example. What about, can you give one maybe on the product discovery side? Not at the end of the process, but how do we get the stakeholders engaged kind of in that early stage of product development where we're trying to figure out the problem to solve and who we're going to solve it for?
Right. So when, I'm assuming that we have an understanding of what our business outcomes are, that we have some high level vision of where we're going, and maybe we have an initiative that's coming down the pike, right? So even in this product world we talk about a lot, we have initiatives that come through. Getting them involved in helping to break down the work and get into that customer journey, right? What stages does a customer go through? Get stakeholders helping you to understand, define that, get them in the room together. User story mapping sessions is a fantastic way of doing that as well. And we've talked about user story mapping on the podcast in the past.
Yeah, great examples. So if you had to give great examples, I should say. So if you had to give our listeners kind of one key takeaway from this episode, kind of building on that theme of avoiding failure modes, focusing on outcomes, identifying your stakeholders, what would it be?
I think it's look at who your stakeholders are, right? If you've gone through one of those exercises we talked about last time, get a list of them and then look at your calendar and see what they're currently invited to, right? You may find out that they're not as involved as you thought they were. And so fix that, get them invited. Your thoughts, Mike?
Yeah, I would. So +1 to that. I think in addition, if you do invite them and they're not showing up or they just don't have time, that's a sign that maybe you're focusing on the wrong thing right now. And maybe you need to go elsewhere in the organization to find where an initiative that's more valuable.
Yeah, well, definitely true. Hopefully this conversation has been valuable to people to kind of get a little bit more practical traction here on how to get those stakeholders engaged, how to make sure that, as a company, you're holding yourselves accountable to this march toward value and business objectives. So
Thanks, Jeff.
for joining us.
Good conversation as always.
Yeah, thanks for joining us on this episode. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Take5IRL podcast. If you like it, please go ahead and share it with someone, as well as like and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Also, leave us a comment or a suggestion for a future episode. Again, thanks for listening, and we look forward to you joining us next time on the Take5IRL podcast.